welcome to the second part where we will bootstrap and configure Siebel Enterprise on the Linux box we installed. So what I'm doing here is cloning the Oracle Siebel Git repository, and Git is not installed, so let's change that really quick. Okay. Yum is our best friend here to install Git really quick. Okay, so now we can run the git clone command. So we have all the scripts and all the repository content, in fact, from the Oracle Siebel GitHub repository, public, on our local machine. So let's check out the directory. So there we go. So here we navigate to the SMC directory, down in Automate Architecture, Scripts, Manage in the classic MDE. So these are all the MDE compatible scripts that Oracle puts on the public GitHub to demonstrate a silent bootstrap and configuration of a simple enterprise, but we can of course amend this. So for the demonstration, I will just go into the GitHub pages. So here, the first one we have to run is actually set gateway. So this one is the first part of a bootstrap of an enterprise where you just specify two parameters really, the gateway host and a port number. The port number is here coded to 888, which is important. That's going to be the gateway service, also known as TLS, unfortunately, host name, but 888 is going to be the port number for the gateway service, not the zookeeper port. And we see how the script works. We have to input several parameters, let's say username, password. And so let's put this together here. So the set gateway, bear with me, uppercase G. So this is the primordial user, the user you would use to log into SMC for the first time. That username and password you spec. So the next part here is the name of the machine that will host the gateway. So -G, and 9011 is going to be the, or is the Tomcat TLS port, where the Tomcat is already waiting for requests. And A in this case, and B is the host and port number to connect to for the REST call. So here we run the call already, and we get, on the last line you can see gateway host updated. That's the status. So that is all, apart from the 200 HTTP response we see here. So we've made a REST call for the first bootstrap step. We have registered the future primary gateway. And so we can run the next command in the bootstrap cycle. You can imagine putting these commands together in a script, amending them. So the next command in the cycle is the security profile. So if you do this in SMC, that's the second step where you create that, usually database security profile, and you use it to authenticate any future call to the gateway. So that's essentially the gateway security profile that you create through this script. And so I will just use the previous command line, just make sure correct command is called, correct script. Username, password is still the primordial user. We cannot authenticate yet through the database. we connect, the REST call is going through the AI as always. D is the database host, so this is pre-configured for Oracle database. And the database host in my environment, of course not in your environment, is devdb01. We have the port number, usual Oracle port, and the service name that in our case there's already copied cloned Siebel database waiting there, the table owner, and we have the test user and test password. So the application runs a login against this database to verify it. So let's see if we have everything in place here. Let's go back. There's, yeah, that parameter should be A for the AI host. Let's remove that space. Okay, everything seems to be all right. So this command will, well, create the security profile. We get it 200 and we get the structure of the security profile back, which makes this look very successful. So we can actually give it a try. So here I'm in the SMC, and now for the first time I log in through the database username and password. It waits for bootstrap step 3. I'm not doing this through SMC, so I'm going back to command line, because I want to use the REST API, command line only, and that is the next step is the bootstrap gateway script. So we see that the registry port is hard-coded here to 2320, so that'll be the Zookeeper client port. We can, of course, change these scripts when we have them locally, etc. And we can use the script as inspiration to create our own, let's say, curl calls or whatever. So we're not bound by the script. I'm just using what I downloaded from GitHub. So that's the bootstrap gateway script. The first parameters are the same, so we need to amend the other parameters. So that's the gateway user, gateway password here. That's the username and password for going into Zookeeper. And that doesn't look right. 401. User authentication failed. My bad, probably. Yeah, of course. So it's no longer the primordial user. It's a real database user with Siebel administrator responsibility, because we're now going through the database authentication already. And that now is a, let's wait. So it's taking a while, which is a good sign, 200, and gateway configuration edit. Okay, let's verify that. Maybe see if any process for Zookeeper is running. Yep, that's a big Zookeeper command line here running. And we also have a Sieb SVC as the gateway service has started up. So just verifying this. Now on that machine, there's a Zookeeper with an empty registry, more or less. So we need to create the next step in a full enterprise deployment is create the enterprise profile. And there's a script for that. So let's run it. So create enterprise profile. Now the username password is, and the AI host port number is always the same, but we have the name of the profile. So this is going like in SMC, you would go to profiles and create that profile using that name. And the next one is the file system, the primary file system. We have to make sure that this folder exists, of course, then the table owner and the database connection, the connect string as in TNS names, so SiebelDB in our case. Okay, let's run this, and we get a 200 and success message. Now just make sure this directory exists, the file system. And I don't know, not mess around with the permissions, so it's just a sandbox. Don't try this at home. So now we have the file system ready, because when we now deploy the enterprise, it will create subfolders in the file system. And so the deployment script provided by Oracle Siebel on GitHub takes the necessary parameters. So I'm running deploy enterprise and providing the name of the profile to use. So that's my ent_profile. And I need, all I need here is the enterprise name. Let's choose DEV uppercase and the description. So def DEV is going to be my enterprise name. All right. Deployment in progress. That's what comes back from the, well, these bigger deployment scripts, as this could take like anything up to half a minute or so. And interesting to know that Oracle also provides us with scripts to actually check the deployment status. So let's run one of these. So check enterprise deployment status, and takes the same parameters as the others, as the script to create the or deploy the enterprise, and we get deployed, status deployed. So yeah, that's good. Next thing is create a Siebel server profile, as we want to have our first Siebel server. First, we need to create a profile. There's a script for that, but well, I'm going to change the tune a little bit. So I used these scripts as inspiration to create my own curl script. And this curl script here is like a one-liner containing all the JSON and the curl command to create a Siebel server profile using specifying call center, Siebel Web Tools, and the EAI component group. So this I prepared, and let's run curl directly. So we do not need the Oracle Siebel scripts. We can create our own curl calls. Of course, we kind of need some inspiration to get the JSON input, the body, get that right. That's, of course, the challenge here. So let's see what happens when we run this. Yeah, good to check on the port numbers that are used by the Oracle Siebel. The default port numbers 2321, the same port numbers I used in my curl script. And running that curl gives me a 200 and successful operation. So I'm going to profiles here just to verify it, and I have a server 01_profile, just created by a curl call, not manually, not graphically, mind you. I'm just verifying this here in the SMC. So now I have a server profile, so I can deploy a server. So there's a deploy server script, and that takes the name of the profile, the host to host the Siebel server, the Tomcat TLS port of that future Siebel server, and the name of the Siebel server. So same things you would put in the SMC graphically. So let's now use the Oracle provided scripts. So deploy server. Again, we're logging into the AI for the REST API, and we specify, let's just make sure server 01 underscore profile is the name of the profile I'm going to use, the name of the Siebel server, let's say server 01, description, and followed by the host for the server. So it's the same machine in our case, could be a different machine, of course. And the port, the Tomcat TLS port. Tomcat must be running on that future Siebel server machine. And the languages, we're just going to use E and U here. That's lowercase. Okay, that's going to be a big one, since the Siebel server will start up twice actually during a deployment, so it could take a few minutes. I've included a very big component group, EAI, so it will take quite a while. And let's monitor this on the Linux box using top and see the well, gateway server is rather busy here. That's the zookeeper, so that was a good sign. And speeding this up here a little bit, so you can use any means. So you're looking at processes or at the CPU of the machine, and you should see a lot of Siebel processes popping up. And you can also, well, like here in the SMC, just refresh the deployment and see there's a Siebel server in deployment currently. So here again, there's some action on the zookeeper. Yeah, we have to be patient now. See what's going on. Let's reload, still deploying. Here we go. So this is the Siebel server actually starting up. So it has been, at this moment, it has been deployed successfully. So now let's see if it can start up successfully. And it seems to spawn its component processes. Yes, a lot of them. So that looks like at least to me now, looks like a good Siebel server deployment. So let's just give it room to breathe and start up and wait until it has cooled down again. Okay, so we cut this short a little bit. So the Siebel server has cooled down, so we're ready to create the AI profile. One of the benefits of using these scripts is, if you are familiar with the process, if you create the AI profile in the SMC graphically, you have to actually wait for the first Siebel server to be successfully deployed. So you have the components running, and you can only register the application section for the components, as the drop-down only shows the components that are running. So this is a bit of a drawback. So using the REST API, we can actually create an AI profile specifying the alias names of the components. We don't have to wait for a drop-down to populate. And I've prepared here a rather big one-line call with a full JSON object that defines various applications, even if they're not running. These applications use the alias names of the components, and you can create this AI profile anytime without the Siebel server needing to be actually deployed or running. So, for example, EAI Object Manager ENU is mentioned a few times since it's in the REST specification and in specifying an EAI application, EAI Anonymous. Call center is two-language deployment here. So let's just run this entire big script. You can put the JSON in a separate file, of course, if you want. Keep that in a, maybe on GitHub. Version control systems. That runs successfully. So let's see what AI profile this created. It's called AI_profile. So all the necessary parameters. This is all coming in through the REST call. So this is just verifying it has not been created in the SMC. REST inbound is fine. So even if the components are not up, it doesn't give you any errors. It just writes the information to Zookeeper, which is perfectly fine. So we have web tools here. We have call center, EI, DAF, call center German, EI Anonymous for SOAP Anonymous. Okay, that looks all fine. So that's a fine AI profile. We have verified that. So let's go about. There's nothing to see here. So let's go about and deploy the AI. Of course, we don't deploy it graphically. We're using command line. So there's a script for that. Thanks, Oracle. And that script will deploy an AI. For deployment, there's not many parameters you need. You need the host and port. You need the name of the profile and the name of the deployment. So I'm going to use the GitHub script here. So that's the deploy SAI script. And the profile is, let's just verify, AI_profile. And we set the other parameters. The AI name is going to be AI_1. AI description, let's put in the same. And the host name where to deploy is the same, but of course the external Tomcat we're using 4430. So that is deployment in progress. So we could run a script to check it, but we can also just check it in the SMC, and it's already successfully deployed. So now, with the Siebel server deployed and the AI deployed, we should be able to get our first contact experience with the application. So let's try to log into Siebel Call Center. So new tab, new browser tab, Siebel App Call Center ENU. And that gives us a login page, which is great already. So the object manager is definitely up. And well, let's log in. And it's all real time. We'll see we get a nice homepage. Yep, there it is. Great, so that's a working Siebel application. It's fine for now, so we verified. We have a successful bootstrap and complete Siebel Enterprise configuration with one server, one AI, a working Siebel Enterprise, and we have not used any graphical interface so far. The next part is getting even further, not provided by Oracle, but taking the inspiration further is, for example, well, what could hold us back from creating a migration profile and deploying the migration app? Let's see how that goes. So I've prepared curl commands. And the first curl command is going to create a migration profile for the Siebel migration application. Okay, profile has been added. Let's verify it. So there's a, well, there it is. So now I can use it to deploy the migration application. Before I run that, I try the REST API. So I'm doing account describe for the data API. That is, the certificate. I have to run it with no check certificate. So using wget here, and that should yield a big open API JSON description of the account business component. So that's using the Siebel REST API, which I'm just verifying, does it work? So here's the describe file I got, and that looks like a big JSON open API file. So that is just verifying the REST API works, because not in the deployment part, but when we actually want to use or log into the migration application, the REST API has to be up and running. So now that curl script here deploys the migration application. And let's see the deployment. So yes, we have a migration application deployed just through command line. And let's create a new connection in that migration application. So I've prepared a script here that uses the migration REST API. So all the previous scripts have used the Cloud Gateway REST API, but now we use the migration REST API to create a new connection in the migration application, just demonstrating that, well, you can do it. There's nothing holding us back here. This, of course, requires the EAI object manager is up and running because it's the regular Siebel REST API. And so this went okay. Let's log into the migration application, see what we have there. Okay. Yeah, okay, that reminds me that database I'm connecting to already has connections entered, one called def, unfortunately. So this is the old connection. So there was no error message really, but it didn't create a new connection with the same name. And that test connection also is from a previous test I did on that database. So these connections already existed. Okay, we have to change that a little bit. I'm just renaming the connection, defx. So now it should create a new connection. Let's just run it one more time. We could even delete the old connections using REST. Let's keep this short. And that's different now. So now I actually get a response back. So you have to watch carefully what you get back. And there was an error message, all right. I didn't see it. So now if we refresh the connections, there's the defx connection created, green, active. So it can connect to the environment. That REST endpoint is valid. Okay, so let's just demo what you can do once you have discovered the power of the curl command lines, the REST APIs of Siebel that are documented either in Bookshelf or on GitHub. What about, for example, configuring the server? So setting components to manual start. So I've prepared a curl script here that uses the Cloud Gateway API. That's not documented, by the way, so we are on very thin ice here, but let's try if I can do a manual start, set the component to manual start using REST. So the curl script runs. There's an error. Okay, thin ice. Oh yeah, sorry, the enterprise name in those scripts is wrong. Let's just quickly go and replace that. So it's the dev enterprise. Okay, so let's try one more time. So you could think of automating the entire, let's say, preliminary configuration of your enterprise, setting up component definitions, parameters. So I'm verifying this in the management page of the SMC, configuration page. Let's go to servers. There's our server. And the business integration patch manager is on manual start. So that is what happened just now. So final step here is to set the gateway safe mode credentials, very importantly, through the REST API. And the safe mode credentials are quite important when you want to change the security profile later on. So it's good to have this. So the command has run and we have safe mode credentials. And that's the end of this demonstration. Thanks for watching. Take care and bye-bye.